If you look at a map of South America, your eyes go immediately to the two giants of the continent, Brazil to the east and Argentina to the south. But tucked against the Andes, wedged between 5 countries in the heart of the continent, sits Bolivia. At first glance, it looks like a geographic afterthought, a landlocked nation cut off from the sea and forgotten by the modern world. But here is the first thing that surprises people. Bolivia is bigger than France and Spain combined. It is bigger than Texas. It is bigger than Colombia. It has 3 completely distinct ecosystems: the high Andean Altiplano, with its dramatic plateaus and salt flats, the fertile valleys of the middle elevations, and the vast Amazon lowlands to the east, covering more jungle than most countries contain in their entirety. It holds one of the world's highest navigable lakes, the world's largest salt flat, and mineral reserves so staggering that for 2 centuries it was called the Silver Throne of the Spanish Empire. By every geographic measure, Bolivia should be packed with people. But when you switch the map to show where people actually live, something appears that stops you cold. Bolivia has just 11.4 million people. The greater metropolitan area of Buenos Aires alone has more residents than this entire country, and that population is concentrated in just a handful of cities clustered in the Andes and the eastern lowlands, leaving most of this extraordinary territory to the condors, the llamas, and the silence. So why does a country with extraordinary natural wealth, an ancient indigenous civilization, and some of the most dramatic landscapes on Earth have almost nobody living in it? And why are thousands of Americans quietly discovering what Bolivia's empty map actually offers them? That is what we are going to find out today. To understand Bolivia's empty map, you have to go back to the silver. In 1545, Spanish conquistadors discovered something that would reshape the entire global economy. At Cerro Rico, a mountain near the city of Potosi, high in the Bolivian Andes, they found the largest single concentration of silver deposits in the history of the Western Hemisphere. Within decades, Potosi had become the largest city in the Western Hemisphere, with a population larger than London or Paris at the time. But silver mining is the opposite of settlement. It requires enslaved laborers. It exhausts the land around it, and when the silver runs out or becomes too expensive to extract, it leaves nothing behind but an empty mountain and a city in decline. The entire colonial infrastructure of what is now Bolivia was built around extracting silver and shipping it to Spain. Roads were built not to connect communities, but to move silver to the coast. Cities were established not as market towns, but as supply depots for the mines. And when the silver ran thin in the 18th century, Bolivia was left with a colonial skeleton built for extraction, but not for habitation. Now leave the silver cities behind and look at the geography. Bolivia divides into 3 radically different zones, and each one tells a different story of empty space. To the west and south, the Altiplano, a vast high plateau sitting between 12,000 and 14,000 feet above sea level. Cold, windswept, and oxygen-thin, the Altiplano supports limited agriculture and requires dramatic physiological adaptation just to live there comfortably. In the center, the valleys at lower elevations with milder climates and fertile soil, some of the most pleasant living conditions in all of South America. And to the north and east, the Amazon basin, a vast, humid, roadless jungle that covers more than a third of the country's territory and contains perhaps 5% of its population. No single geographic zone in Bolivia is inherently hostile to settlement, but all three present barriers that slowed the organic growth of dense population that you see in coastal or temperate nations. And then there is the altitude issue that defines Bolivia more than any other single fact. La Paz, the seat of government, sits between 10,650 and 13,250 feet above sea level. It is the world's highest administrative capital. Visitors experience genuine altitude sickness, headaches, shortness of breath, fatigue, just walking to the corner store. This is not a minor inconvenience. It is a physiological challenge that self-selects who chooses to live there. But the geography is only half the story. Bolivia went through something that broke the back of its population growth. After independence in 1825, Bolivia lost territory in war after war, shrinking from a country that once included Pacific coastal land to the landlocked nation it is today. The War of the Pacific against Chile in the 1880s stripped Bolivia of its coastline entirely, cutting it off from maritime trade. The Chaco War against Paraguay in the 1930s cost tens of thousands of lives and more territory. Bolivia also experienced one of the most extended cycles of political instability in the hemisphere, with over 190 governments between independence and 1980. Every period of instability brought immigration. Educated professionals left for Argentina, Brazil, the United States, and Spain. Bolivia has been exporting people for nearly 2 centuries, and its population density of just under 10 people per square kilometer reflects every single departure. Today, there are an estimated 1 million Bolivians living abroad in a country of just 11.4 million, approximately 1 in every 11. But here's where Bolivia's story takes an unexpected turn, because despite everything, the geographic barriers, the colonial legacy of extraction, the political turmoil, Bolivia has something that almost no other retirement destination on Earth can match. Price. Bolivia is the most affordable country in all of South America by a significant margin. Not slightly cheaper, dramatically cheaper. Rent in Cochabamba, Bolivia's most livable city, averages $200 to $400 per month for a comfortable apartment. A menu del dia, a full sit-down lunch of soup, main course, juice, and dessert at a local restaurant costs $1.50 to $2.50. A steak dinner with wine at a good restaurant costs $10 to $15 per person. Utilities for a month, electricity, water, and gas run under $40. Bolivia has been ranked consistently as the least expensive country in South America for a comfortable expatriate lifestyle, and the gap between Bolivian costs and U.S. costs is not marginal, it is transformative. Over the past decade, a small but growing community of American retirees has been discovering what Bolivia's empty map actually means for them. Not a problem, an opportunity. Let me show you what I mean. Cochabamba sits in a valley in the Central Highlands at about 8,400 feet above sea level, low enough that altitude is manageable for most healthy adults, high enough that the climate stays mild year-round. Average daytime temperatures range from the mid-60s to the low 70s degrees Fahrenheit every month of the year. No extreme heat, no extreme cold, no hurricane season, no monsoon. Cochabamba has become Bolivia's preferred expat destination for exactly this reason. International Living has called it one of the best climates in the world. A comfortable one-bedroom apartment here runs $200 to $400 per month. A restaurant meal at a mid-range establishment costs $4 to $8 per person. Here's what a comfortable monthly budget looks like in Cochabamba. Rent, $250 to $400. Food and dining out regularly, $150 to $250. Healthcare, $50 to $150. Transportation and entertainment, $75 to $150. Total, $525 to $950 per month. Even the most conservative Social Security benefit for a single American retiree covers a comfortable life in Cochabamba, and a couple receiving average benefits has more money than they can reasonably spend. But Cochabamba isn't the only option. Look south toward Bolivia's constitutional capital. Sucre sits in a protected valley at about 9,200 feet, the so-called White City of the Americas. Its colonial architecture so intact that the entire historic center is a UNESCO World Heritage Site. Cobblestone streets, whitewashed colonial buildings, a permanent population of university students, creating an intellectual energy rare for a city this size, and a climate so mild and consistent it earned Sucre the nickname City of Eternal Spring. Rent for a comfortable apartment here runs $150 to $350 per month. And then there's Santa Cruz de la Sierra, Bolivia's largest city and its economic engine, sitting in the tropical lowlands at a much more accessible elevation of just 1,400 feet. Modern shopping malls, excellent restaurants, a wealthy expat and business community, and a warm tropical climate that some retirees prefer over the chilly highlands. Rent here runs $300 to $600 per month. For retirees who need tropical warmth and modern infrastructure, Santa Cruz is the entry point. Now let's talk about the practical side, because Bolivia offers something that most retirement destinations struggle to match. Genuine affordability backed by a stable immigration pathway. Bolivia's retirement residency visa, known as the Rentista visa, allows foreigners to establish legal residency by demonstrating a reliable monthly income of approximately $1,000 per month, or the equivalent in documented savings. For American retirees receiving Social Security, this threshold is easily met. The application process is handled through the Bolivian immigration system and typically takes several months. A key fact for American retirees: Bolivia does not tax foreign income at the source. Only income generated within Bolivia is subject to Bolivian income tax at a flat rate of 13%. Your U.S. Social Security, U.S. pension, and U.S. investment income are generally not taxed by Bolivia. This, combined with the cost of living so low that most retirees live on a fraction of their income, makes Bolivia one of the most financially advantageous retirement destinations in the hemisphere. After 2 years of legal residency, you can apply for permanent residency. Citizenship becomes an option after 3 years of permanent residency. Bolivia's banking system works for expatriates, with U.S. dollars freely usable and accepted throughout major cities. The Boliviano, Bolivia's currency, has maintained relative stability, particularly compared to Argentina's peso, which has experienced devastating inflation. Bolivia has managed inflation at moderate levels for the past decade, preserving the purchasing power of foreign income in a way that more volatile regional currencies cannot. Healthcare in Bolivia is a topic that requires honest assessment. Private healthcare in Bolivia's major cities, Cochabamba, Santa Cruz, La Paz, and Sucre, is genuinely good quality and dramatically affordable. A private doctor consultation costs $15 to $30. Private health insurance plans for expats run $50 to $150 per month. However, for serious or complex medical conditions, particularly anything requiring highly specialized surgery or intensive care, Bolivia's private system has limitations. Most experienced expats maintain international health insurance with medical evacuation coverage or plan for medical travel to Brazil, Argentina, or the United States for significant procedures. The good news is that with Bolivia's extraordinarily low cost of living, the budget savings are so large that funding a medical evacuation policy is still financially trivial compared to staying in the United States. Now let's talk about something that matters just as much as the cost: community. Because retiring abroad alone without a support network is one of the biggest mistakes retirees make. Bolivia's expat community is small, honest about that, and concentrated primarily in Cochabamba, Santa Cruz, and Sucre. But the community that exists is tight-knit, experienced, and deeply helpful to newcomers. The Bolivian people themselves are warm, proud of their culture, and genuinely welcoming to foreigners who approach them with curiosity and respect. Learning at least basic Spanish is more important in Bolivia than in some other expat destinations, as English fluency is less widespread here than in Uruguay or Belize. But the linguistic payoff is enormous. Bolivia's indigenous culture, its festivals, its markets, its food, its music, its deeply old civilization opens up to you when you make the effort, and the lifestyle itself. Bolivia moves at a pace that most Americans have completely forgotten exists. Long market days in the colonial plazas, afternoon coffee that stretches into evening conversation, weekend excursions to landscapes that seem from another planet. There is the Salar de Uyuni, the world's largest salt flat. It is a white expanse that stretches to the horizon under a sky so large it seems impossible. There is the high-altitude Lake Titicaca, shared with Peru, the highest navigable lake on Earth, ringed by ancient reed islands where indigenous communities have lived for millennia. There are the Yungas, steep jungle valleys descending from the Andes, where subtropical fruit grows at the edge of the cloud forest. Bolivia offers more landscape variation per dollar of cost than perhaps any country on Earth. But here's what makes this moment particularly interesting. Bolivia is at an inflection point. A new government elected in late 2025 has signaled more openness to foreign investment and simplification of bureaucratic processes. Property prices remain extraordinarily low. A comfortable apartment in Cochabamba's best neighborhoods sells for $50,000 to $120,000. A colonial home in the historic center of Sucre runs $80,000 to $180,000. A modern house in Santa Cruz with a pool sells for $120,000 to $250,000. For American retirees who own property in the United States, selling and buying in Bolivia can eliminate housing costs entirely, leaving retirement income to compound or fund travel. Bolivia remains one of geography's great paradoxes, a country bigger than France and Spain combined, holding three distinct ecosystems, the ruins of a civilization that predates Europe's cathedrals, mineral wealth that once funded the entire Spanish Empire, and just 11.4 million people spread across a territory so large and so varied that most of it has never seen a paved road. Its map wasn't drawn by nature, it was drawn by a colonial silver economy that built infrastructure for extraction, not habitation. by wars that strip territory and people alike, by altitude that self-selects its residents with physiological ruthlessness, and by generations of educated young Bolivians who immigrated in search of economic opportunity. But for American retirees looking for something different, something genuinely affordable, something with landscapes and culture that the tourism world has barely noticed yet, Bolivia's empty map isn't a warning, it's an invitation. An invitation to a country where your Social Security check covers everything and a significant fraction goes straight into savings, where a steak dinner and a bottle of local wine cost less than a fast food meal back home, where the air is thin, but the skies are enormous, and where you can live inside one of the most ancient civilizations in the Western Hemisphere for less than anywhere else on Earth. Bolivia chose depth over development, culture over convenience, and in doing so, it created something genuinely rare in the modern world, a country that is almost empty and almost perfect. Before we wrap up, if Bolivia is seriously on your radar, here are 10 facts you need to know before you make the move. Fact number 1. Bolivia is the most affordable country in South America. By virtually every international cost of living index, Bolivia ranks as the cheapest country in South America for a comfortable expatriate lifestyle. We are not talking about a small margin. Housing, food, transportation, and services in Bolivia cost 60 to 75% less than in the United States. A couple can live very comfortably, dining out regularly, taking weekend trips, maintaining health care on $800 to $1,400 per month, depending on their chosen city. Fact number 2, your U.S. Social Security benefits are paid in full, even if you live in Bolivia. Bolivia is not on the Social Security Administration's list of countries where payments are restricted. Your check arrives every month in full, deposited directly into your U.S. bank account, which you can access through international ATMs throughout Bolivia's major cities. Fact number 3, Cochabamba has one of the most temperate climates of any city in the world. Situated in a protected Andean valley at 8,400 feet, Cochabamba maintains average daytime temperatures between 65 and 75 degrees Fahrenheit every month of the year. No extreme heat, no extreme cold, no hurricane season, no monsoon flooding. The climate is so consistent and mild that International Living has listed it among the best retirement climates on Earth. Fact number 4. Bolivia holds the world's largest salt flat. The Salar de Uyuni covers 4,000 square miles of the southwestern Bolivian Altiplano. During the dry season, it becomes a mirror that reflects the sky with perfect clarity. During the wet season, it fills with a thin layer of water and becomes a giant, reflective pool. It is one of the most extraordinary landscapes on Earth. As a resident, you would be able to visit it on a weekend trip. Fact number 5. Bolivia has 36 official languages, the most of any country in the Americas. Spanish is the dominant language for daily life in cities, but the country's extraordinary ethnic and cultural diversity, Quechua, Aymara, Guarani, and over 30 other indigenous languages, creates a richness of cultural experience that no other country in the hemisphere matches. For retirees interested in living inside a genuinely ancient and diverse civilization rather than simply an affordable one, Bolivia is extraordinary. Fact number 6. Bolivia does not tax foreign source income at the national level. Foreign income, including Social Security payments, U.S. pensions, and investment distributions from American accounts is generally not subject to Bolivian income tax. Only income generated from Bolivian sources is taxed at a flat 13%. For most American retirees living off foreign income, the Bolivian tax burden is effectively zero. Fact number 7. Bolivia has Lake Titicaca. Shared with Peru, Lake Titicaca sits at 12,507 feet above sea level and is the highest navigable lake in the world. It is also one of the most culturally significant. The Uros people have lived for centuries on hand-built floating islands of totora reed. The Tiwanaku civilization, which predates the Inca Empire, built its capital on the lake's southern shore. As a Bolivian resident, this UNESCO-recognized lake is a day trip from La Paz. Fact number 8. Bolivia's private health care in major cities is affordable and functional. A private doctor consultation in Cochabamba or Santa Cruz costs $15 to $30. A private hospital room costs $100 to $300 per day. Dental procedures cost 60 to 80% less than in the United States. Many doctors in Bolivia's private clinics were trained in Brazil, Argentina, or Spain and maintain international standards of competence. For routine care and management of chronic conditions, Bolivia's private healthcare system meets the needs of most retirees at dramatically reduced cost. Fact number 9. Bolivia's property market offers some of the lowest real estate prices of any country in South America. A furnished apartment in Cochabamba's best neighborhoods can be purchased for $50,000 to $120,000. A colonial home in Sucre's historic center runs $80,000 to $180,000. Foreigners can legally purchase property in Bolivia with the same rights as Bolivian citizens, and there are no restrictions on foreign property ownership. Fact number 10. Bolivia has also kept a navy despite being landlocked for over 140 years. Ever since Chile took Bolivia's Pacific coastline in 1879, during the War of the Pacific, Bolivia has maintained a naval force that patrols the country's rivers and Lake Titicaca, and symbolically keeps alive the Bolivian aspiration to regain sea access. Bolivia still officially observes a day each year mourning the loss of its coastline. It is a quirky fact that points to something real. Bolivia has an extraordinary sense of national identity and pride that infuses even daily life, the markets, the food, the festivals, the way people talk about their country. For retirees who want to live in a place with genuine cultural depth rather than a manufactured expat enclave, Bolivia offers something irreplaceable. Bolivia isn't the loudest retirement destination. It doesn't have the marketing budget of Costa Rica or the name recognition of Mexico. But for retirees who do their research, who look past the altitude concern and the political headlines and dig into the actual daily experience of living there, Bolivia keeps appearing at the top of every list that actually matters. Most affordable in South America, most culturally rich, most dramatic landscapes, most favorable cost to quality ratio of any retirement destination in the hemisphere. A country that is almost empty and almost perfect. Now, I want to hear from you. Would you consider retiring in Bolivia? And which appeals to you more? The eternal spring climate of Cochabamba, the colonial beauty of Sucre, or the modern tropical energy of Santa Cruz? Leave your answer in the comments below.